What's up, everybody? Wow, at the very start of this, the camera goes out. That's just kind of how it goes, I guess, sometimes there. I don't know why my screen's looking like this. Let's make it look a little bit more like this. Looks a lot better, doesn't it, if I've got the right screen up there? What's up, you guys? And I hope you guys are just as fired up as that song there was. Kind of threw it together last minute before this game. There's a lot of news to get into, and it's all surrounding the game that's coming up this weekend, and I'm going to jump right into it. Yesterday, Nick Saban comes down with coronavirus, and there's a whole lot of chit-chat back and forth. The lines have moved a lot as far as betting goes. There's a lot surrounding this game, and being that it's dog talk, that's all we're going to talk about. I don't know how I feel. There's a lot of different feelings, and that's kind of what we're going to jump into. He's got coronavirus, obviously, up front. Prayers to him. I know they say that he's asymptomatic and that he feels fine and is doing good, and I think he Zoomed practice yesterday, which is fantastic. Great. I'm glad to hear that. I would rather him be healthy. And I think, I don't know of anybody that would say, yeah, I don't think I really want Saban there. Me personally, I want him on the field. I want him on the field to play us. I want the full package playing Alabama. There's some teams out there that I think would say, no, if I can get away from playing Alabama, why in the world wouldn't I? And we're not going to make that the case. I would rather him be there. Here's a couple of reasons why. I grew up in the state of Alabama, if you guys don't know me. So I grew up around a ton of Alabama fans, plenty of Auburn fans as well. I was definitely the underdog when it comes to being a Georgia Bulldog fan, but I took it with the strides that it was. But me knowing how Alabama fans are, if Nick Saban is not on that sideline and Georgia was to win this weekend, you're not going to get credit from the fan base. You'll get credit for beating Alabama, sure, but you won't get credit for being the first, Kirby being the first assistant to beat Nick because Nick's not on the field. You won't get all the credit in the world for beating Alabama because they didn't have Nick Saban there. So if it's me, I wish he could be there. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to be there, which stinks as far as that goes. But again, prayers to him. Hopefully he stays asymptomatic, doesn't have any symptoms come up, and he can move on past this and we can move forward. Moving forward with that, Steve Sarkisian's going to come in his place, and he'll take over and take over the reins. I think he's coached at like Washington and somewhere else, I forget now. So he has experience as far as being a head coach, and he's obviously running the offense there for Alabama, which he's done great so far. If I'm looking at a stat here that I was looking at earlier, Alabama's offensive stuff right here. Let's just see. Points per game, 51. Okay. Points allowed per game, 30. Pretty good, as opposed to Georgia's points per game, 36. Not as meager, but the defensive side, like we're always talking about, we've only given up 12.3 points per game when it comes to that defense. Total yardage, we put up 420. They put up 560. Obviously, offensively, Alabama is the matchup. And the thing that I was looking at earlier is the stats comparison. This is the most fun to me is you have a powerhouse offense in Alabama taking on what I consider to be a powerhouse defense here at Georgia. So you've got it. You've got the matchup you want as far as that goes. And the kind of funny thing that not many people are talking about, I mean, you hear it for sure, but Georgia's offense is not quite where you want it to be yet. Same thing can be said about Alabama's defense. Not quite where you want it to be. So in all terms, you've got good receivers. Obviously for Alabama, you got good receivers for Georgia. You got great defensive guys for Georgia. You got great defensive guys for Alabama as well. Georgia's defense has just stepped up more, whereas Alabama's hasn't. But vice versa. Alabama's offense has stepped up more, where Georgia's hadn't quite stepped up as much. Now, we're getting the job done. Looking at the past few games, the toughest game that Alabama has had, I'm going to say outside of the Ole Miss game as far as offensively goes, they only put up 38 points against Missouri, which has a pretty good defense. You move on into that, obviously they put up a heat load of points against A&M, who didn't really show me much until last week against I wanted to say Auburn, but they didn't play Auburn last week. Arkansas played them. Anyways, they showed up against Florida. That's who it was. And then Ole Miss, no defense in that game on either side of the ball, it really seemed. Then you look at Georgia's first three games. We struggled in the first half against Arkansas, but we get the job done. Ended up beating Arkansas by 27. We scored 37, only give up 10. Auburn game, we firing all cylinders in the first half. Second half, we didn't look all that great offensively as far as putting points on the board. All we got was a field goal, and the rest of that we held Auburn to 6 points, which was fantastic. Never let them in the end zone. Then you go to Tennessee, 44-21. We give up 21 points, only 2 of which were defensively. The only thing that scares me about those 2 touchdowns, it's in the secondary. That's the only thing that I fear about that, because we got to the quarterback plenty of times. We stopped the run game, obviously, only holding them to, it was at the end of the day, it was -1 yards because of all the sacks and the tackles for loss. But either way, we held the running backs in check, but we still had 2 plays that were touchdowns against the defense, and it all came in the secondary. That's the only thing I fear coming into this game for our defense, because I don't doubt that we're going to put plenty of people in the box, and we're going to hopefully stop, if not at least slow down Najee Harris, which is good because he's coming off a rolling game where he put up a lot of yards and just had a really, really, really good game. That's all there is to it. But again, my fear is if we can put pressure stopping the run game and we can get to Mac Jones, great. But we've got to get to Mac Jones before he can get to these wide receivers that can get out wide real quick and in a hurry. That's my only fear as far as our defense goes. Offensively, again, Alabama's defense didn't look that great. Granted, they did go up against a really fast-paced Ole Miss team who can put up a lot of points, and they spread that offense out. Georgia's not that team. So I don't want everybody thinking we're going to come into this game, we're going to spread it out, and we're going to run lights to the wall the entire game, because that's not Georgia way. That's just not us. Another side of that is we can't play conservative either. We can't get in there and try to take our time with it, because what's going to happen is Alabama's going to sit there and go, okay, we went from as fast as you can go last week to all of a sudden we're moving in slow motion, and it's a lot easier. A good friend of mine told me it's a lot easier to slow the game down than it is to have to speed it up. If you're set on a pace and somebody's running a lot faster than you, it's hard to catch up and keep up. Whereas on the other side of things, if somebody's going slower, it's pretty easy to kind of, take it a little easier and catch up with that. So we'll see how everything's going to shake out. Again, I don't feel bad about our defense. I think our defense, as long as our safeties and our cornerbacks can stick with these wide receivers, stick them hard and heavy right there at the get-go, keep everything in front of you. I would much rather lose 15 yards on a pass play than I would a 75-yard bomb behind me because I couldn't keep up with these guys. These guys, I'm hoping in practice all week, have done nothing but grind and grind and grind against these guys. Hopefully practicing go routes against them, post routes across the middle, everything. Because that's what Alabama's about to throw at you. They're going to do all they can to get out wide because they know that eventually they're going to have to throw the ball, because if Georgia can start to slow down, if not stop Najee completely, they've got to go to the air. That's the plan against them. Same thing on the other side of the ball. We are going to be able to run the ball a little bit. It looks like their rush defense, let's see, rush yards allowed 150, whereas we're only giving up 38.5. So we should be able to run the ball decently. They're giving up 322 pass yards, whereas we're only giving up 198. So we should be able to move the ball in all aspects. We should be able to move the ball in the air. You got George Pickens, you got Kearis Jackson, you got D-Rob's back, and you even got like Trey McKitty there on the line at tight end position. So you've got guys to throw the ball to. The objective will be for Stetson, get the ball out quick and in a hurry, because these guys are still going to be after you. But get it out. You got guys in the gap, hit them. Hit them. Let's get the ball out fast. Let's move the ball. That doesn't mean we have to move at this unrealistically fast pace, because that's one thing that I don't want to happen either, is Georgia decides, hey, let's get out of how we play football. Let's play how these other guys do, and let's ramp it up, because the faster you start trying to make plays, yes, you can get success out of it, but you can also cause a lot of mix-up. You can start throwing the ball away and making mistakes when you start to run at a pace that you're not used to running at, which Georgia doesn't. Occasionally, yeah, we'll speed the ball up and we'll get on it and roll on. A lot of times I've seen that happen really under like 2-minute offense. But regardless, hopefully we can get this thing rolling. And again, I wanted to run through some of the other stats. And this is the comparison on offense and defense here. Let's see, Alabama's offense. They are first in the SEC and first in the Power 5 as far as scoring points per game at 51. Georgia's defense is first in Power 5 and the SEC, only giving up 12.3, which I just talked about a little bit a minute ago. In the Power 5 and in the SEC, Alabama is second in total yardage per game at 560, whereas Georgia is first on defense in the Power 5 and SEC at 236.7 given up total yards per game. Power 5 and the SEC, Alabama is first in both of these categories, and this is yards per play. Georgia is first on defense in Power 5 and SEC in the yards per game, or per play. Alabama's used to getting 8.6, whereas Georgia's only giving up 3.7. Rush yards per game. This is a big difference right here, and I hope this makes a big difference in this game, and hopefully it will. Alabama 14th in the Power 5 and 3rd in the SEC as rushing yards per game, getting 175.3. Georgia first in both of those categories, Power 5 and SEC, only giving up 38.3. I think if we can keep Najee to at least 50 to 60 yards in this game, you stand a good chance as long as we're not giving up these bombs out there to the wideouts for Alabama. Moving on in the passing ranks. Alabama is second in both Power 5 and in the SEC, passing for 385 yards a game. Georgia is 7th in Power 5, but first in the SEC, only giving up 198.3. Should be a big difference in the game as well. Again, to me, it's not about the front seven. It's these guys in the back. We got to keep up in secondary. Yards per YPA. What would that stand for? I'll have to think about it for a minute. But anyways, Alabama's offense does come in first in the Power 5 and in the SEC, giving 12.7. Georgia's second in the Power 5, but first in the SEC, only giving up 5.2. Moving on to completion percentage. That would be first in the Power 5 and in the SEC for Alabama at 78%. Georgia is only giving up defensively. They're 9th in the Power 5, but first in the SEC, 55.7%. So keeping that number down where you want it to be. More of those havoc rate numbers, basically. Third down percentages. Alabama is first in the SEC and Power 5. This could make a big difference in the game. Third down is always a big difference in a game. They're first again in Power 5 and the SEC at 64.5%. Georgia defensively, we're 9th in the Power 5, but we are first in the SEC, only giving up 55.7%. Again, third downs make a huge difference, not only for your defense, but also for your offense, because if you can get out there and you can stop these guys on third down and get them off, you get your offense on the field to hopefully put together another drive where you can drive down the field and get points. It takes that, stopping them, and also stopping them in a position that you give your offense good field position. So that could be a key point to go into it. If we go into this and we're giving them, 75% as far as their third down completion, it's going to be really, really hard for us to keep them off the scoreboard and us to have opportunities to get on the scoreboard or have good field position. So keep an eye on that third down percentage there as well. First downs per game, Alabama ranks second in both Power 5 and SEC at 27 first downs a game. Georgia's only given up defensively, second in the Power 5, first in the SEC, 14.3. So good comparison there. Looking at Mac Jones' comparison to the Georgia defense, his completion percentage right now is 380%. He's throwing 367 yards per game. His QBR is 95. And touchdowns to interception ratio, he's 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. Again, Georgia's defense, 56% defensively as far as completion percentage, so keeping that number down. Hopefully we can do that against Mac. That just takes getting these guys in the backfield as quick as you can, stopping the run, stacking the box. Guys that are out on these wideouts, good defense is all it takes, and you can stop that. We're only giving up 198 again. QBR is 9, which is the best in the SEC. Defensively, we have 3 touchdowns defensively and 5 interceptions, so hopefully that havoc rate can make a difference. I was telling a good friend of mine, I think if you can get Georgia to score at least 4 offensive touchdowns, maybe even a defensive touchdown, and obviously special teams as far as field goals go, it can make a big difference in your game. Putting them in bad positions as far as fourth down goes. If we're having to punt the ball, put them in bad field position, make them either drive an entire field or stall a drive by putting them deep. If you give them good field position, they're going to make a difference in it. But I do think that if Georgia can score 4 offensive touchdowns in the game, I think Georgia can win the game. And that's because I'm relying and leaning heavily, like I think we plan to, on that defense, on our defense to be able to stop them and stall drives for them, get the ball back, go down. Because I could see Georgia, if you can get 4 touchdowns offensively again, 28, maybe get an interception, fumble, at least turn them into points, whether they're field goals or not, get a couple of field goals on the night. You're scoring over 30 points. And I really don't think we're going to allow Alabama, even though we just gave up 21 to Tennessee last week. Again, one of those we gave them in the end zone on a fumble, second play of the game. That's defensively. That has nothing to do with, that's offensive woes on a bad snap. That has nothing to do with the defense giving it up. Again, they did have the 2 bad give-ups as far as the passes go into our secondary. So as long as we can limit those gash plays to the secondary, and our secondary can really lock these receivers down, which is a tall task. Jalen Waddle's fast, and he's got good hands. Devontae Smith, same thing. I mean, they got guys out there. The new guy that's coming up, Michi, he's another good one. So we've got our work cut out for us as far as all this goes. Your season leader so far, Stetson's looking at 689 yards, passing 5 touchdowns, whereas Mac Jones is 1,100 yards, just a tick over, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. Zamir White's the leading carrier for the Dogs, 209 yards, 4 touchdowns. Najee Harris at 347 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's had a lot more touchdowns on the night. Now, again, this also comes in a lot of goal line stands. He's got 150 more yards, yes, but if you give that 150 more to Zamir, he still probably doesn't match up in touchdowns. A lot of that comes on that goal line stand, getting a guy through the goal line. Receiving yards, Kearis Jackson, he continues to stand out. He's got 300 yards, only 1 touchdown on the year that he got against Tennessee. That's got to change. We got to get him some more yards, get him some more touches and touchdowns once we get into that red zone. Jalen Waddle does lead for Alabama at 396 yards, 3 touchdowns. We told you about the points per game and a lot of the stats, some of the latest matchups. And the line on this thing has swung. One of the first lines I saw was like 7, 7.5, and then I think it pretty much trickled down to 6 and has been floating at 6, 6.5. Well, yesterday after the Nick Saban news came out that he had coronavirus and that he wouldn't be able to coach, that number, the lowest I saw it get down to was 4. Right now, looking at it, it's 4.5. The over/under is 56. I really like the under. If I was predicting this game or picking it, which, you might as well call that I do, I could see it going 26-24, 30-24 maybe. And I'm picking the Dogs in this one. I think even if Nick Saban was there, I just feel like Georgia's defense is going to be able to stand up enough. And I really, really hope that we do. I love that the ESPN has us at 39.4% chance to win this, whereas Alabama is 60.6%. So call it 60-40 odds there. We'll see. I don't think the Dogs is that bad. Going back to what we talked about as the news broke with Nick Saban. So if he's not on the field, again, a lot of people aren't going to give you credit for beating him. Nobody's going to give you credit as far as beating Nick Saban because he wasn't on the field. Because I think what works in this situation is, like I said, he's zoomed in with the team. I don't think he's allowed to have any communication with the team basically from here on out. And this being Thursday night, moving on to Friday, obviously Saturday into game time. I would assume all communication has to end as far as once they get in the stadium. I do know, I think they said 90 minutes before a game and 90 minutes after. From that period, 90 minutes before the game all the way till 90 minutes after the game, he will not be able to have any communication. He can't call in during a game, anything like that, to talk to any coordinator, anybody, which rightfully so. I'm not one to sit here and say, he shouldn't be able to. I don't really care, but at the same time, I can look and sit here on a football field, watching a game, and I can say, okay, you can kind of see what's going on here. Some coordinators that are up in the booth, they can see the same thing and they can handle it, but normally your head coach is down on the field, so he's not sitting up there watching it, but they're smart enough. They can see what's going on the field from the field level. He's been doing it plenty long enough. So, and I also know this. For the people that don't want to give Georgia credit if Georgia was to win this game, it's still a Nick Saban-led team. Even though he's not there, to give them the pep talk, especially at halftime, because Alabama, is a halftime team where they come in, and if they're not doing good in the first half, he talks to them. He'll jaw at them and give them the news and the business to let them know you got to come out and play better, and they generally do. So unfortunately, you don't have him there. Would be kind of funny to see if maybe he, records a video and sends it to them before the game, and they watch it at halftime. Who knows? Maybe to get them fired up, whatever it takes. And I'm fine with that. But I do think you're going to not get a lot of credit. But here's the thing. One of the other things that I was thinking about. Some of you guys may agree with me, some of you may not. But this is what I was feeling. I've always said this is very difficult to beat a team twice in a year. Take the Auburn-Georgia game a couple years ago. They beat the snot out of us in the regular season. We turn around and beat the snot out of them in the SEC championship. I'm sure this has occurred on multiple occasions. I think even a few years back, say a few years, it's been a while back now, I think Alabama LSU. I think LSU beats Alabama in the regular season. They get spanked in the SEC championship. It's extremely hard to beat a team twice in a year. Not saying it can't happen. Not saying it can't. Not saying it won't. But it's hard. If it was me, if we knew right now, okay, Georgia is going to the SEC championship game. Over and done with. You know you're going. And you know you're going to face Alabama in the SEC championship game. I would much rather lose Saturday. Never want the Dogs to lose, but I would much rather lose this coming Saturday and have the opportunity to win in the SEC championship game than I would lose then. Because if you lose now and you beat them then, you're into the playoffs. If you win now and you lose then, you might not be into the playoffs. You may be if there's only one loss under your column, and very well possible. I think your only test coming up after that is more than likely going to be that Florida game. Mizzou will give you trouble on defense. Mississippi State doesn't look as good as they did. South Carolina's not looking all that great. They're starting to come along after a big win over Vandy, but, it's Vandy. Vandy ends the season. I don't think Kentucky would do much to us next week. Again, we can't look past that, obviously. The biggest thing is playing Alabama this weekend. So that's my thought. Now, second thing on that is, if you were to beat Alabama this weekend and in the SEC championship, anything anybody's got to say about Georgia never getting over that hump, never being able to beat Alabama, it goes out the window. Because if you beat that team twice in a year, one maybe without Saban, one with, there's still probably going to be people out there that say, oh, well, you didn't beat them the first time when Saban was here, but you did the second time. Still probably going to be people to discredit you. And I think that's probably a thing all the time, anywhere, everywhere. But regardless, do I want the Dogs to win? Absolutely. Hope we do. Hope we can just continue striving and moving forward. Because I would love to get over the hump that everybody considers to be Alabama. Again, prayers up to Nick Saban. Hope he gets to feeling better. Really wish he'd be on the field so that way we don't have the naysayers if Georgia wins this game. There's always the possibility Georgia doesn't win this game. There's always the possibility we go to the SEC championship and we don't win that. That's just taking the bias out of it because I've been a Georgia fan for a long time, and I've been a Georgia fan as far as the state of Georgia, the Falcons, the Braves, for a while. And if you know Georgia football, if you know Falcons football, if you know Braves baseball, sometimes these Georgia sports just don't turn out the way that you would think, even if they look like they're going to. National championship for the Dogs, looked like they had it won, gave it up. SEC championship the year following, same thing. Braves a couple of years ago, give it up. Play the Cardinals last year, give it up. Look a little bit better this year. Didn't look good yesterday, but hopefully tonight we can get back on track. Falcons, you're in the Super Bowl, you got the game won. You could practically kneel and just eat some clock, and you got it won, and we give it up. So that's where just the Georgia side of me comes out. Because that's just the way that's just the way the cookie crumbles as far as it goes. I hate to feel and say that way, but that's just how it is. If you've been a Bulldogs fan for long enough, everything you've had to go through. You hadn't won a national championship in, 30, 40 years now, since 1980 exactly, so 40 years. So it's time. We're definitely overdue. The past few years, we've had a really good team. We've been right there on the verge, and we're so close in 2018 that we had it. I mean, you could just about feel it, and we lost it. And I want this to be the turnaround year. I don't care if there's an asterisk next to it or not, because I've said that too. If you think that if your team was to win the championship this year, you should stand by that if your team doesn't. So regardless of whether there's an asterisk or not, if you want to say, oh, this season doesn't count just because your team lost, so be it. But if you think that it counts when they do win it, then you better believe that everybody else should have that same right. So that's kind of it moving forward through that. That's most everything I've got for you previewing the game this upcoming weekend. Looking forward to it. Excited for it. It's a late, dark night game. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the Dogs are ready. I think the defense looks stout. I think if Stetson can play a good game and these wideouts can get loose and find some gaps out there, I think we can wreak havoc on them that way. I think our ground game is going to be ground and pound. Again, I think our defense is going to terrorize Mac Jones more than he's been terrorized all season, and I really look forward to that because I'm curious if we can get back in that backfield, which Alabama has a huge O-line. It's going to take a lot to get past them. But I do think that if we can get past that O-line and start to wreak havoc on Mac Jones and start putting some sacks on him, he's going to start to second-guess some stuff. He may throw the ball up and make a mistake and we can get an interception off of it. Or he may gash us. It can go either way, obviously. But I really do feel like that if these dogs that we got this year can get in that backfield and get in Mac Jones' head, one thing, go ahead and be prepared for Bryce Young to come in if that happens, because for whatever reason the past couple of years we completely forget that they've got another quarterback. I will say offensively we kind of have that in our pocket too. JT Daniels is back there. That dude can sling a football. If you ever watched any of the film on him from USC, he can get in there and do exactly what Matt Corral did last week with Ole Miss against Alabama. And we've got wideouts that are fast enough to get loose too, just like that. So if those guys can get out and loose and we can sling a ball to him, don't think that's not going to happen either. But I really, really want to see these dogs bust through that line and hit Mac Jones in the mouth a couple times to let him know who he's playing. And I really, really hope that we come into this game fired up, ready, traveling to Alabama. And I do fully believe this. If these dogs that we got on the field this year can just get it in their mind that they can do this, they can get this job done. Forget everything in the past. Forget what's happened 2 years ago. Forget what's happened 1 year ago. 1 year ago, excuse me. 2 years ago, technically. We played LSU last year. Never saw them. But anyways, outside of the few guys who played in that game, that should just be more of a fire underneath the tail to let them know we got to come in here and beat them. Instead of coming in and thinking, oh, this is big bad Alabama, we can't do this. Get it in your head now. We can do it. You can get out there and do this. Get it in your head now that you got this game under control. If you go out there and play your game the way you know how to play, you will beat this team. You will beat and take Alabama down. But they have to have it in their head. I can have it in my head all day for them. It don't matter. Kirby Smart can have it in his head knowing that he can beat them all day. But it don't matter until those players believe it. And I truly do hope and believe that they will believe it, because I think if they do, we can go in there and beat them. Now, let's jump across to a couple of other games outside of the league. Obviously, the Florida-LSU game, if you hadn't heard by now, it has been postponed. The other one was what was it, Vandy? I thought it was Vandy, South Carolina. Maybe it's Vandy, Ole Miss. I think they may have been postponed. They're coming into the week. A lot of that I chuckle at, but at the same time I don't, because coronavirus is a real thing, and it's a tough thing for especially your older people. That's why I was concerned when I heard that Nick Saban had gotten it, and the AD there for Alabama. But a ton of people, or a ton of players for the Florida team have contracted it. And I go back to what I said last week. It was ridiculous that old Dan Mullen down there was saying that he wanted to pack the swamp, put 90,000 in there. But listen, I'm not going to harp on him about it because he said what he said. I get it. He was in the heat of the moment as far as it goes. This is the only time I'm ever going to leave any kind of grace, I guess you could say, towards Dan Mullen as far as it goes at Florida. Because heaven forbid anything happen to any of those players. Prayers down to the Florida players and hope that they can all get better, any of them that are feeling symptoms, and stop the spread of this thing. So at least one good thing of it is, you don't have 90,000 that are going to be in the stands this week. For that, they'll replay that one December 12th, the week before the SEC Championship, and the week after the end of the regular season. A couple of other games around the league here. You got Auburn taking on South Carolina. Auburn's only coming in as a 3-point favorite there at South Carolina after the struggle win against Arkansas last week that Arkansas truly won. Another one here, Kentucky, Tennessee. Tennessee comes in as a 6-point favorite. I think Tennessee's going to blow the doors off Kentucky right here. Didn't feel all that great about them before. Feeling pretty good about them. Don't think Kentucky's got a decent defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to hang with the Vols there at home. That over-under there is 46. Texas A&M travels to Mississippi State. Should be a good one. Maybe Mississippi State tries to come alive. Maybe A&M really fires it back up and says, hey, we showed you what we can do last week. Let's keep it rolling. Obviously got Georgia, Alabama. And that's it. That's pretty much all you got outside of the couple of games that were postponed there. Looking outside of the league in your top 25 here, Louisiana Raging Cajuns went down last night 30-27. Coastal Carolina upset them. Coastal Carolina is 4-0 on the season. Louisiana there will drop to 3-1. at the 21 spot. More than likely will drop out of the top 25. Tomorrow on Friday, you get SMU Tulane. Should be a good one. BYU Houston, another really good one there. A couple of Friday matchups for you to watch. Saturday, you get Clemson, Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech may come in fired up about that one, but I think Clemson's going to take care of business. But it hadn't been, in the past, Clemson does randomly struggle with a team. Who knows? It could happen. More than likely it's not, though. Don't think the Techies are going to give them much trouble up there anyways. Hope they don't. Hope Clemson wears them out. Pitt taking on Miami should be another good one there. Maybe Miami will come up fired up after that Clemson loss. Auburn, South Carolina, we talked about. Louisville, Notre Dame. Looking forward to this one to kind of see what Notre Dame's got. I think if Notre Dame can put a popping on Louisville, it'll make a big difference in this one. North Carolina, Florida State. North Carolina only a 13.5-point favorite. Watch out because Florida State's got them a quarterback down there. Could start the same way as the other. Then you got Boston College, Virginia Tech. Should be a really good one there. VT only comes in as a 12-point favorite. A couple of the others postponed out of the top 25. It's number 7, Oklahoma State taking on Baylor. Postponed, and Cincinnati Tulsa has also been postponed. So, coronavirus is continuing to be kind of that thing that's wreaking a little bit of havoc on them as far as that goes. So, that's it. That's all I got for you tonight. It's pretty much just looking forward to this Georgia game that we do have coming up. I'll play a little bit of this that I was playing for you earlier just because I like it. I think we are ready for them. I hope the Dogs are ready for them. I think that they can beat them. And I hope they do. I hope the Dogs take it to them. And we get to win this weekend. But without that, go Dogs. Let's get the job done this weekend. Let's get the win. Let's bring it back home to Athens. And let's get ready to take on Kentucky next week. But first, we got to take care of business against Crimson Tide. And I hope we do it. Hope you guys enjoy the game. Y'all be safe whatever you're doing and watching the game. I look forward to checking in with you guys on Sunday after the game. Outside of that, I'm out. Go Dogs.